Patrick Mahomes is not the greatest quarterback of all time. Hi everybody, I'm Marky Billson. That's not a knock on Mahomes, but it's just he hasn't played long enough. And prior to Super Bowl 55, I could not believe how many people were trying to put Mahomes' 3-year career as a starting quarterback up against Tom Brady's. I mean, it just, 3 years does not equal 20, as impressive as those 3 years have been. And it's just that simple. And to say so, I think, just has an alarming either lack of knowledge or lack of appreciation or both of sports history, something that I tend to cherish. Now, for Patrick Mahomes, who's a star, and even after losing the Super Bowl, I mean, I think you can make a strong argument that he is the best contemporary quarterback in the NFL today. But for him to be considered the greatest of all time, I mean, you have to do something like set the record for career passing yards, or win more Super Bowls than Tom Brady, or have a longer consecutive game streak with a touchdown pass than John Unitas, or he'd have to do something to really change football the way that, say, Sammy Baugh and Sid Luckman did years and years and years ago, when they basically took the game from being a single wing formation game to a T formation game. We'll never forget the way you thrilled the nation with your T formation. Bear down, Chicago Bears. That's Sid Luckman. And that's what he did. He was Babe Ruth. He began to change the game from running to passing. Way back when, 1940, that sort of thing. Also, I mean, you could say something, well, this guy's the best because he's the most efficient quarterback. This guy's the best because he's the best in throwing the long bomb or so. I mean, I get it, but is Mahomes any of that? Well, let's give him 15 years and find out. Let's not try to appoint him this before he's, as Bill Parcells might say, trapped his furs. There's another old quote right there. I tell you, I know my football history and all this. And I'm not saying that Mahomes won't be he's the quarterback of the future, I think. Absolutely. But greatest of all time? Not after 3 years. And again, I understand the idea that, well, athletes are bigger and stronger today. So the best contemporary athlete would have to be the greatest of all time. But wait a minute here. Doesn't that make the title greatest of all time meaningless? I think it's overused. Truthfully, I don't necessarily like it, although, yeah, sure. Who's the greatest basketball player of all time? Who's the greatest quarterback? Who's the greatest football player? Whatever. It's an interesting idea, but when you start using greatest of all time, I think there's a natural allowance of equalizing eras of long ago, and I do mean the Sid Luckman and Sammy Baugh eras, if not before, to the contemporary football player. Now, is that the right thing to do? Because, as I said, let me give you an example of how much bigger and stronger athletes are today. Wilbur Pete Henry of the Canton Bulldogs, 100 years ago, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, should be. He was considered a gigantic lineman in his day. He weighed 250 pounds. I mean, it would not even be considered today for a college team, let alone a pro. But then again, you can make these arguments. It's like, yes, Tom Brady has the nutritional acumen and all this, and this is what makes him a better quarterback. But what if he was in William Puffelfinger's era? William Puffelfinger was the first pro football player for us. So, I mean, he's eating meat from Jurgis Rudkis's meatpacking plant, for crying out loud. How do we know if you live? It's not going to be the same nutrition, but if you give Puffelfinger Tom Brady's nutrition, what happens? On the flip side, if you give Brady the nutrition of 100 years ago, let alone weight training and all of that stuff, do you have a different football player? Would a contemporary lineman who now weighs 300 pounds. Would he weigh 220 100 years if he was playing 100 years ago? Simply because that's what you needed back then. More mobile linemen in the single wing, that sort of thing. And, running, when the offensive line is a little smaller, a little more mobile, it tends to be, a little bit better for run blocking, or at least that's what traditionally what they would say. So, regardless, I don't think Mahomes is the greatest of all time. I think that saying that is, I wonder the people who say that, if they even know who Sammy Baugh and Sid Luckman are. If they know that Fran Tarkenton, you want to talk about pioneers, basically invented the short passing game in the NFL and the scrambling quarterback. A true pioneer, retired as the all-time leader in passing yards. Is he the greatest of all time, or is he never won a Super Bowl? That's all he is. And I kind of think that the people who would, put Mahomes after just 3 years onto that level are ignoring the pioneers. Or let's even say a Terry Bradshaw, my boyhood hero. No one was ever better at throwing the deep ball than Terry Bradshaw. Number 2, Terry Bradshaw was the first quarterback to win 4 Super Bowls. Well, yeah, Tom Brady puts that to shame. Tom Brady has never won 4 Super Bowls in a concentration of 6 years like Terry Bradshaw did. Consider that. That's a pioneer. So when we're looking at that, we've got to consider those things, and I know so many people today want to dismiss Bradshaw's, he's a guy who only threw 2 more touchdowns and interceptions. You want to dismiss Joe Namath, the first 4,000-yard passer in pro football history. He had more interceptions than touchdown passes. He's won game, and he didn't even throw a TD pass on that one. I think there isn't enough appreciation with history, and that's shown when you want to choose a quarterback, even one as great as Mahomes, after 3 years and trying to put him as, he's the greatest ever. And I've heard people do that. Like I said, Mahomes, even in defeat, star quarterback, likable quarterback. Stats he's put up beyond impressive. One of only a handful of quarterbacks to throw for 5,000 yards in a season. 50 touchdown passes. His career touchdown pass interception ratio is almost 5-1. He's got an 8.4 yards per pass attempt in his career. You want to average 7 yards per pass attempt. He's 8.4. Then again, for his career, which lasted from 1946 to 1955, Otto Graham had a career yards per pass average of 9. Even higher than Patrick Mahomes. So, please, let's appreciate Mahomes in the moment. But don't, and I'm going to use a baseball reference, historical baseball reference, don't Bobby Bonds him. Bobby Bonds was a wonderful baseball player, but he was supposed to be the next Willie Mays. Didn't quite live up to that. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, but let's not make him one of the greatest of all time just yet, because if you do, I think you're going to doom him to failure. He's just never going to be able to live up to those standards. Folks, I'm Marky Billson. I ask that you follow me on YouTube, on my new Rumble page. Also, I write these columns in Medium, and you will be able to find me, Twitter, Gab. I'm on Gab now. So check all those things out. Again, the big thing, though, Rumble and YouTube. Check those out, okay? Hit the bell, if you will, if you're on YouTube. And until next time, I'm Marky Billson.